What's up everyone, I'm Calamontoast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some insane battles in the Master League Premier Classic Cup running a double fire team. Now when you look at all the team building videos, the best teams, the best Pokemon to use for the Master League Premier Cup, no one recommends any fire types, but they're incredibly strong when you think that two of the three dominant types in this meta are steels and fairies, which both lose to fire types. You wonder why isn't anyone else running them, and I'm going to tell you that typically the fire types that are available to use in the Master League Premier Classic Cup are very squishy, so they're a bit harder to use. But I absolutely love these glass cannon Pokemon, and I love using both Darmanitan and the Chandelure, and we're going to be pairing it with the Walrein in the lead. Walrein typically very meta in pretty much any league aside from the Master League because its stats don't quite compare to a lot of the other Pokemon, but its typing is still very strong, its moveset is still very strong, and it covers a lot of the Pokemon that will be beating these fire types. So the Dragonites, the Waterfall Gyarados, Garchomp, Swampert, they're all very strong up against my fire types, but Walrein does handle them fairly well. So as the safe swap, we've got Darmanitan with Incinerate, Rock Slide and Focus Blast. That Rock Slide coverage comes in really handy up against those flying types. Typically, when we safe swap the Darmanitan, we will see a Gyarados or a Dragonite swap in, so Rock Slide will hit for massive super effective damage, and we can typically get a shield or do huge damage to those Pokemon. And we're running the Focus Blast Surprise Nuke. If you guys enjoyed the Gengar battles with the Focus Blast, then you guys are gonna love these battles because we do land the Focus Blast several times and it just does insane damage. And now as the closer, we've got the Chandelure. Typical moveset here, we got Incinerate, Flame Charge to ramp up that damage, and Shadow Ball to hit pretty much everything for massive neutral or super effective damage. Before we go any further into the video, I want to mention that today, Saturday, the 1st of October, is Go Battle Day, so if you weren't aware of that, make sure you take advantage if you can to get more sets in, as there is now a bonus of 4 times Stardust from the win rewards. So if you want to take advantage of that, make sure you do. And as well, because it's Go Battle Day, I'm running the Battle of Spice competition for the 3rd time here on this channel, and if you want to find out more information about this competition, make sure you stick around until the end of the video. So with that being said, let's get into the question of the day. What is the most underrated Pokemon in the Master League Premier Classic Cup? Let me know in the comment section below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Alright, so going into the first battle here, we lead into a Florigis, so we are going to farm up to 6 Powder Snows, and then swap here, trying to get a full Incinerate through if they did try to throw their charge move, but they swap into a Snorlax. Now we already know we've got that Focus Blast. Is my opponent gonna respect it? We go all the way to 100 energy, surely we're just baiting, right? And Focus Blast lands, we take out the Snorlax, we regain switch advantage. My opponent comes in with a Dragon Breath Gyarados, we get to a Rock Slide, and it lands, it does huge damage to the Gyarados, and at this point we're looking to be in a very comfortable position already. We can go for an Icicle Spear, we get a shield, we switch into the Chandelure, catch a charge move from this Florigis here. It's a disarming voice, it doesn't do too much damage. We're gonna overfarm here, my opponent gets to another charge move, we will shield it up this time. It is a Moonblast, we're going straight for the Flame Charge here. It's not going to do too much damage, but it will ramp up my attack, and also it will allow me to fully Incinerate, farm down the Florigis. They get to another Moonblast, that does quite a lot of damage actually, but we do Incinerate, farm them down, go for a Shadow Ball up against this Gyarados, and my opponent lets it go through. They realise they weren't going to win that game, and we do take it there. So GG's to my opponent there. Into the next game, we lead into a Gyarados. This is where we want to see it on this team, and it is very nice that they're running Waterfall because we do resist that damage, and as well it doesn't charge very fast compared to the Dragon Tail and the Dragon Breath. So we're going to let this charge move go through. They go for a Crunch. It's not going to do too much damage. They switch into a Snorlax here, and I'm going to swap here on the charge move. We're going to catch a Body Slam from this Snorlax, which is perfect. Of course, the lick damage is super effective, but the charge moves do absolutely nothing, so I don't have to shield a single thing from this Snorlax. I'm going for a Flame Charge. Flame Charge isn't going to do too much, but a second one will threaten a shield or take out this Snorlax, and I barely get get there, and we do get a shield from this Snorlax. So now we've got a shield advantage in this matchup. We're going to come in with our Darmanitan. They swap back into the Gyarados, so I swap, go for an Icicle Spear up against the Gyarados. We do land it. We go for one more Powder Snow, go for another Icicle Spear, and this does take out the Gyarados. We're going to see what my opponent comes in with. They come in with a Metagross. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get to an Earthquake, so we have to settle for an Icicle Spear. They take us out. I come in with Darmanitan, but we've got 2 shields remaining, so we're looking to be in a pretty good position here. They go for a Psychic, going for that defense drop. They don't get it. We go for one Rock Slide here. Rock Slide gets a shield from the Metagross. They go for a charge move straight away, so we get a full Incinerate through. I anticipate they swap back into the Snorlax, so I throw the Rock Slide straight away. We take out the Snorlax, and I can Incinerate, farm down the Metagross, and take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game, we lead into a Togekiss. Now, we've got 3 Pokemon very strong up against Togekiss, but they swap into a Waterfall Gyarados. This is still a positive matchup for me, but I'm thinking that if this is their best response for a Walrein, then perhaps they have something else very weak to the Walrein in the back. So I'm thinking that I'm actually going to have to preserve the health on my Walrein. I know that all 3 Pokemon do handle that Togekiss, but it all matters what that final Pokemon is. I'm going to go for an Icicle Spear. We take out the Gyarados. I'm expecting the Togekiss to come back in, so I switch into the Darmanitan. They stay in for a while. They switch into a Garchomp, and this is where it's really handy having that Focus Blast, because both other charge moves are typically resisted, but that did so much damage, and we put them into range where we can actually just Powder Snow, farm them down here, as long as we do call a Sand Tomb bait. Now they're going to go for the charge move here. I'm actually going to call the bait, and it is just a Sand Tomb. We do tank that. They're going to get to another Sand Tomb, but we should still tank this charge move, and we do. I'm able to Powder Snow, farm them down, go for an Icicle Spear up against the Togekiss. We probably get a shield, and we do. Now I can switch into the Chandelure, and at this point it's going to be game over. I just have to shield up this charge move, and to speed things up, I'm going to go straight for the Shadow Ball here. There's no point going for a Flame Charge. They're going to let this one go through, and they do, and we take out the Togekiss, and we're able to take that game. So into the next game here, we lead into a Shadow Gyarados, and it is a Dragon Breath Gyarados, so this is a bit trickier. I think Dragon Breath Gyarados does actually beat my entire team, but because it's Shadow, these Icicle Spears do chunk. We're actually just going to let this charge move go through. It's a crunch. I'm actually going to save swap into the Darmanitan. Because it is a Dragon Breath Gyarados, we don't have to worry too much about the fast move pressure from that Gyarados. So we swap into the Darmanitan. We're going to farm up to the 100 energy here, go for a CMP tie. Darmanitan wins the CMP up against the Excadrill, and I'm expecting the Gyarados to come back in here, and they do. We're going for a Rock Slide straight away. This will do huge damage to the Gyarados, so we get a shield, and if my opponent tries to farm me down, we're going to get to another Rock Slide, and this will take out the Gyarados or get the final shield from my opponent. I'm going to come in with Walrein. They swap into a Shadow Snorlax, and like I said earlier, that lick damage is super effective, but they can't hit for any damage on the charge moves, so I will be able to go for 2 Flame Charges here. The first one does big damage, the second one will definitely take out the Snorlax, and at this point, as long as the Gyarados doesn't have 2 charge moves to throw, we should be in a very good position. They're going to go for 1 charge move here, probably going to bait us with an Aqua Tail. They do go for it, but I've now received the energy for an Icicle Spear. An Icicle Spear from this range is enough to take out the Shadow Gyarados, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game, we lead into a Shadow Snorlax. Now this is a lot trickier than before, because Snorlax is going to do massive super effective damage, and whilst shields up, that Chandelure matchup isn't that great. We try to swap out and catch a charge move at a pretty random time there, and unfortunately the Snorlax is very smart, or the trainer at least, because they hold on to all of that energy on the Snorlax, and things are already looking very bad for me here. We're going to come back in with the Walrein. We do have a ton of energy though, so this not completely over yet. We're going for the Icicle Spear there. We're going to no shield this charge move because Snorlax does have so much energy. We're going for an Icicle Spear number 2, and if they let this go through, then hopefully I can Powder Snow, farm down the Gyarados completely. I'm going to go straight for the Icicle Spear. My opponent decides not to throw their charge move, but they will be able to lick farm me down, so I swap into the Darmanitan. They throw on the alignment there, so I get a full incinerate through. They throw straight away again, so I get another incinerate through. So they're giving me an opportunity to fight back in this matchup, but unfortunately they've got a Milotic, and unfortunately this Pokemon is super bulky, and even though we land a Focus Blast, that's not going to threaten their shields, and also they do get to the surf just before we get to a rock slide, so really well timed charge move there, and unfortunately I just can't do anything. So a double water backline with a Shadow Snorlax in the lead, probably the hardest thing that I could face with this team, so unfortunately we do lose that one, but GG's to that opponent there. And into this game, we lead into a Conkeldurr. We're going to swap into the Darmanitan as usual, go for a Rock Slide bait. This is very risky if they let this go through, but they don't, so we do get the shield. And I'm going for a Focus Blast, and if they let this one go through, this will absolutely destroy the Conkeldurr. But my opponent decides to double shield. Now I'm thinking they didn't switch out there, they must be super weak to fire in the back, so I'm actually just going to bring the Walrein in and completely sacrifice it. Dynamic Punch actually doesn't KO, Walrein is a tanky beast. I switch into the Chandelure here, my opponent has their own Chandelure, so this is the only Chandelure I've faced, and it's pretty cool to see my opponent running a very spicy team, but we take out the Chandelure. And now they come in with a Magnezone, so I do appreciate the spice from this opponent. They are bringing a much spicier team than what you typically see, but unfortunately for them, Chandelure is gonna sweep them and we're able to take that game. So GG's to that opponent. Into the next game, we lead into an Excadrill, and what I like to do here is go for 2 Powder Snows, switch out, and if they throw as soon as they have the energy, then we're going to get a full Incinerate through. So if we'd have switched out straight away, we still would have only got 2 Incinerates through, but we end up giving 2 more Powder Snows to the Walrein first, so that is how I like to play it. And as well, because they switch out after the charge move, I'm able to get to another Rock Slide here, and we do take the Gyarados extremely low. Now I'm going to come back in with the Walrein. I'm probably not going to shield anything from this Gyarados. This will be a crunch, or perhaps it's an outrage. It's just a crunch, and that is fine. And now at this point, I think my opponent is only going to be able to get to an Aquatail, so they actually choose not to throw, and unfortunately for them, they don't get off any charge move. They have a Sylveon in the back, and at this point, I can fully Incinerate, farm down this Excadrill, use my final shield on the Drill Run, but that's fine. I've got 100 energy. I'm going for a Flame Charge. I don't expect them to shield the first move, but that is fine. I'm going to be able to get to 3 charge moves before this Sylveon can get to a charge move or Charm farm me down, and at that point it is going to be game over. We don't have to fully charge this move, and we're able to take out the Sylveon and take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game, we lead into a Dragonite. So finally, we see a Dragonite in the lead. But this is going to be very tricky because Excadrill can get both of my shields in this matchup if they choose to shield themselves. So they go for a Drill Run. I have to go for the Flame Charge straight away. Otherwise, we will be outpaced to the next charge move. And my opponent does shield it up. They get to another charge move. I want to maintain the switch advantage, but it does mean that my Walrein is going to be exposed to that superpower if the Dragonite comes back in, and it does. I'm going to get to a Shadow Ball. I expect my opponent to shield this up, but they actually let it go through, and that is going to be big because now I can switch into the Walrein and fully Powder Snow, farm them down before they're able to use their energy. We're going straight for the Earthquake, no messing about here. Earthquake gets shielded, and perhaps we possibly should have baited there because my opponent overfarms massively, and even though we've got 2 fire types, they do not appreciate an Earthquake, and that is the problem with this team, is that when shields are down, they're going to pretty much lose to everything because they are so squishy. But Earthquake takes out the Darmanitan, and I do lose that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Really well played. After I was able to snipe down that Dragonite, they were still able to take the win. So into the next game, we lead into a Floriges. We're going to swap here, catch the charge move on the Darmanitan, and it's a Moonblast. It still does quite a lot of damage, but that is fine. My opponent stays in for a while, and they switch into a Hydreigon. This is the only one I've ever seen in the Master League Premier Classic, and it gets boomed in about 5 seconds, so that is probably why you don't see it, but my opponent not expecting that Focus Blast, and that was just insane. We're going to come in with the Chandelure here. We do have that switch advantage now. We don't have to shield anything from this Floriges. They go for a Moonblast, but actually that does huge damage, and as well it does drop my attack. I'm pretty sure this is going to be a Disarming Voice, but I do shield it up. I don't know what their final Pokemon is yet, so I'm going to go for a Flame Charge up against the Floriges. My opponent shields it up, so I'm thinking that they've got a steel type in the back, otherwise why on earth would you shield in this matchup? They let the second one go through, and it is a Metagross, and at this point that's going to be game over because I can go for a charge move here. And remember, Walrein does have a ton of energy already loaded, and we will be able to get to an Earthquake here. So I'm actually going to no shield this charge move. Meteor Mash comes through, it doesn't take me out, and my opponent actually quits mid charge move animation there, and we do take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game, we lead Walrein into another Gyarados, so a very common lead. And once again, they're running Waterfall, so pretty nice for me. I'm going for the Icicle Spear after 7 Powder Snows. That is the best timing in the lead scenario. And my opponent is going to go for a charge move here. I'm going to shield this up because they are staying in. I don't know what they've got in the back, but I might need to maintain the health on my Walrein, because if it's something like a Dragonite, then we do need to maintain this matchup. My opponent switches out and it's actually a Swampert, so it's very good that I maintained the health on this Pokemon, because Swampert absolutely destroys my backline. We get a shield with an Icicle Spear bait, and now I'm going for the Earthquake. It goes unshielded, which is perfect. Unfortunately, they do get to the charge move here, but we can live this if it's a Hydro Cannon, which it is. I'm going for the Icicle Spear here. Not sure if my opponent lagged there, but we do get a shield, and now I'm going to switch into the Chandelure. I don't want to be farmed down, but I also want to force them to throw their energy. Chandelure gets absolutely destroyed by that Hydro Cannon, but it does mean I can now come in with the Darmanitan here, and I should be able to incinerate, farm them down, but they switch out, and that is smart because they now will be able to get to a Hydro Cannon. But I'm going to shield this up. It's a wild charge, and that is perfect. I'm going to throw at 100 energy, but my opponent throws a mirror shot, and that just gives me even more chance to win this game, because now I can incinerate fully, farm them down, and I've got 2 rock sides to throw into these 2 water types that are very low in health. First one takes out the Swampert. The second one is going to be taking out this Gyarados, and we're able to take that game. Whew, that was a pretty close game there, but my opponent sort of handed me the win, going for that mirror shot on the Magnezone. But into the next game here, we lead into a Garchomp, a very good lead. My opponent switches into an Excadrill, and I'm going to counter that swap with my Chandelure. And unfortunately, this is a matchup where we are going to go down shields if we want to maintain switch advantage, but we will definitely be able to maintain switch advantage if we double shield. Now my opponent lets that move go through. We're going for a Shadow Ball up against the Garchomp. My opponent does shield it up, and it looks like they're going for a full Mud Shot farm down, but I'm able to get to another Shadow Ball. This will do huge damage, and we do land it, and I'm going to swap trying to snipe them, but my opponent anticipates that, and they go for an Earth Power, and that's actually going to put them in a really good position because they can safely shield up this charge move and fully Bullet Punch farm me down. And this Metagross will come out with a ton of energy, and it's really going to come up down to whether my switch clock is up or not, and it is nowhere near up. I'm going to shield up this charge move, hope that I'm going to be able to swap out of this matchup, but the switch clock doesn't come up yet, and unfortunately they're going to get to an Earthquake. Earthquake takes out the Darmanitan, and they're able to Bullet Punch, farm down my Chandelure, and take me out there. So really well played to that opponent there. Very good call, anticipating that I would try to snipe them on that Garchomp, and just going for the Earth Power was really, really smart. But into this game here, we have made a mistake because we've tried to counter this Metagross with my Darmanitan, and I've said already, Darmanitan, a brilliant safe swap, but it is not a great counter when shields are up, so you should swap into the Chandelure if your opponent does swap into a steel type. And now we do end up losing that matchup. Of course, we did get a shield advantage, but that doesn't matter too much if my opponent has something that is going to beat the Walrein in the back. We take out the Metagross, we come in with the Walrein here. We're going to overfarm a ton, go for an Icicle Spear, but this Gyarados is still very healthy. They're going to swap now into the Excadrill. They're going to go for a charge move here, and now I have to think about whether I want to go straight for the Earthquake or bait. I go straight for it just before they reach a move, and my opponent does shield it, so very smart there. They're going to go for another charge move, and I will overfarm just a little bit. And now I actually switch into the Chandelure, forcing them to throw their energy. They go for a rock slide. If they let just one incinerate through, then we probably could have gone for an icicle spear here. But unfortunately they didn't, so we have to go for the earthquake. And this Gyarados, still super healthy, gets to a crunch, and crunch takes out my Walrein, and I do lose that game there. So that pretty much comes down to me swapping in the Darmanitan instead of the Chandelure to punish that Excadrill Say Swap. So into the next game, we do Say Swap into the Darmanitan. This time, my opponent goes straight for the Dragon Claw. They do actually win CMP up against the Darmanitan. I go for a rock slide. My opponent shields it up, which is really nice. I'm going to come in with the Walrein. And now we are going to shield up this charge move, overfarm a ton before we do go for an Icicle Spear to guarantee we take out this Dragonite. And Icicle Spear very obviously going to take out the Dragonite, and we're going to see what they come in with now. My opponent is going to come in with a Metagross, and they catch the Earthquake onto a Gyarados, an insane catch. I really just didn't expect that, and that could win my opponent this game. We're going to go for a CMP tie here on the Aquatail because I know I can live this, and I'm forcing them to try and throw their energy straight away. So we're going to go for the Icicle Spear, but we get a shield, and I really didn't expect them to shield that. There's no reason to shield that unless they think that they've got something, or I've got something in the back that is going to lose massively to the Gyarados. But with a shield advantage, we farm up to 100 energy, go for a Shadow Ball, take out the Gyarados. We get to another Shadow Ball up against this Metagross, and Shadow Ball takes out the Metagross, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, then make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future and you're not yet subscribed, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications so that way you're notified whenever I upload a new video. And with that being said, let's get into more details about the Battle of Spice competition. So for the Battle of Spice competition, this is an opportunity for you to be featured in one of my most insane videos to date. All you have to do is submit one battle showcasing your most insane game, featuring the spiciest or most unique team you can come up with. Unfortunately, because the only leagues available this weekend are the Master League and the Master League Premier Classic Cup, I understand that it will prevent a lot of trainers from participating, but because of this, I'm going to be more lenient with the spice that gets featured. So if you've only got the resources to build one spicy Pokemon and you want to pair it with two already built meta Pokemon, that is absolutely fine. I'd rather give more people an opportunity to enter the competition. I will be selecting the top 10 battles that are submitted to be featured in a video. I will then make 2 separate polls within YouTube, each containing 5 of the featured teams. The winner of each poll will then move on to the final poll where people will vote for their champion of Spice. The names of the trainers will remain anonymous until the competition has concluded to prevent the polls from becoming a popularity contest, as this competition is of course open to other content creators. The winner will then be able to submit more battles, up to 10, but I don't mind if they're handpicked or if they're 2 full sets for me to feature in a full video. There may be more prizes to be announced later, but don't expect too much. So if you're interested in entering this competition, I will leave a link to the Google submission form in the description and probably in a pinned comment as well. And on top of that, over the course of the weekend, I will be making multiple community posts to remind you guys about the competition, and there will be links there. So you should be able to find a link pretty much wherever. The competition will run over the entire weekend, not just the Saturday during the Go Battle Day. So if you are busy on Saturday but you still want to enter the competition, you can do your battles on Sunday and you still will have time to upload and enter the competition. So with that being said, let's get into the shoutouts from my previous video. So firstly, we've got Thomas Toth, who says, I wonder how Shadow Dialga will change the Master League. Currently it's already one of the strongest Pokemon in the entire league, but the Shadow bonus will mean that Ironhead is going to be more threatening up against those Fairy types, and even Steel types won't be safe from a Shadow Draco Meteor coming from Shadow Dialga. Next we've got Guy Incognito with a very interesting choice, as they say Heatran, it has has enough bulk that it won't be overly punished by the shadow penalty to its defense, but that bonus shadow attack will give it the bite that it needs to really run away. At the moment, Heatran got a very unique steel and fire typing. It does double resist the charm damage, so it is the hardest answer to Charmers in the Master League, but it just doesn't really hit that hard. But with a shadow bonus, it could be a lot more threatening. And finally, we've got Cool, who mentions the Reggie trio. Registeel would be very interesting with that shadow bonus because Zac Cannon and Focus Blast already hit extremely hard, but most Pokemon can just barely tank those charge moves, but with the shadow bonus, maybe they will not be able to. And as for Regirock and Regice, these Pokemon could be actually pretty strong in the Master League, but they don't quite hit hard enough. But with that shadow bonus, that would change everything. So with that being said, thank you all so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.